Can everybody hear me? Go like this. Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, let's start. Okay. Welcome everybody, Shalom Aleichem, to the Baal Shem Tov on the Torah and the mystical teachings of the Baal Shem. I started off last week with a story that I was not able to finish because of the lack of time. But we have to finish it, and then we have to bring it home in terms of its meaning. And the story was the story called The Gloomy Tailor, in which in Vienna, there was a tailor, always dressed raggedy, always looking very gray. And this one businessman, he would give him a couple of groschen, and the gloomy tailor would give him a blessing. And this businessman caught on eventually that his success, which rose rapidly, came to him because he gave this guy a coin and got a blessing from him. And one time, I guess he was drunk in some party, and he revealed the secret. It's that gloomy tailor. Word went around, and he became, famous. Tailor, go give him a coin, a kopeck, or whatever it is, the coins, and he'll give you a blessing. And word got to the Baal Shem Tov about this gloomy tailor, and he sent his students to go bring him. He wanted to know what it was, because according to the charts and everything, in terms of the soul nature of this, he didn't see that this was one of the holy tzaddikim. He wasn't on the list of the holy 36, It's an unchartered, righteous man who seems to be, incredible in terms of his ability to give blessings. So he called the man in, he's sitting with him, and he wants to know, tell me the story of your life. And the person was saying, I was just born here. I went to school here. My parents more or less okay, And I got into the business of being a tailor. And, grew up, and then me and my partner decided we're going to go on the tour. We're going to go place to place for a couple of years, and sell our wares, our skills, and we'll amass amount of money, and we'll come back and be able to start a huge business and progress that way. So we set out, we ventured, and we were going from town to town and city to city, working as tailors for royalty, nobility. We were finding good jobs. We got a lot of money together, and we were on our way back to Vienna. And we stopped out at an inn, and here we are, eating. And I got in a conversation with a guy, I remember, and he told me about that there were some people in town. They were running a tavern, and the way that it worked in Europe was you didn't own anything. What you did is you rented it, whatever the business was, and you had to pay the big land baron. And if you were behind in your payments, right, with the big land baron, what they would do is basically they would throw you in a pit. They would throw you in a hole, literally, and they could just leave you to die there, okay? Unless somebody would come up with the money, okay? And they did that a lot. They did that a lot of places where if the guy couldn't pay the money, they'd throw him and his family into a hole and let him just die, okay? And so he's getting a conversation with the guy in the inn, and he says, yeah, there's this couple, man, this whole family, man. They couldn't pay, and the baron threw them in a hole. And they've been there, right? I don't know for how long. And they're rotting. I don't know if they're alive by now, but, the baron needs at least 600 rubles, which is was a lot of money, okay? And I think, this is what the gloomy tailor is telling the Baal Shem Tov. So I heard that, and I went to my partner. I said, come on, man, let's chip in, and we'll pay the money, and we'll get these guys out of this hole. They're stuck in a hole, this family, freezing, cold, dying, starving. And my partner didn't want to do it. He wasn't going to do anything, right? Nothing. Not forget about 50-50. It was just nothing. I wasn't going to get anywhere. So I says, okay, let's split all of our business. We'll divide down the middle. You take your half, I'll take my half. His half ended up being 600 rubles. He went to the baron, gave him the money, and the baron released these poor Jews out of the dungeon where they were just languishing away. And they came up, and they couldn't believe how happy and grateful they were for getting out of that hole. And they came to him and they kissed this tailor's feet. But the rest of the story is the tailor had nothing. After his 2-year venture all over to amass amount of wealth, he had nothing, okay? So he came back to Vienna, and what could I do? I had no life. I had nothing. So I just became a beggar, and I would beg, and that's how I would make my living. And as soon as the Baal Shem Tov heard that, he went, that's it. The schus of you redeeming the captive gave you that incredible power of blessing. Now, if you recall last week, what did we learn last week? Okay. We learned last week about the mitzvah of redeeming the captive. That we talked about the holy sparks that are in every single aspect of reality. From the 288 sparks that were shattered. Sorry, the 288 sparks, I'll tell you, there were 7 vessels that shattered. This primordial cataclysmic event that occurred before creation, as we spoke about. Now, when these vessels, so to speak, shattered, so the shards of this vessel, the lowest part of this, whatever it was, concept, fell to become the worlds, the lower dimensions of creation, formation, and making, we're in the bottom part. But the shards, these broken vessels, if we could picture it to such a degree, that fell, they didn't fall alone. Because if they would have fallen alone, it would have been lifeless. There had to be an element of life that still was able to reach down there and give them some element of existence. And that element of existence that went into every single thing physical, those are the 288 sparks. And they exist in everything. And so when we use something, even when we do something, we are either elevating those sparks, we are freeing those sparks, especially when we eat food. And the Baal Shem Tov went so far as to say last week that the sparks are so encased inside whatever it is, the object. Let's look at it as an object, because it could also be an action. They're encased in the object very much like a baby inside the womb, or like a prisoner who's in a very small cell, right? I think they spoke about those kind of prisoners in Vietnam, where they were encased. It's just like a little tiny, and their knees were folded up. And so when we partake of that food, that drink, wear that shirt, we are freeing the captive. We are participating in this incredible mitzvah of freeing the captive. What a mitzvah. What a thing to wake up to. Okay? And like I said last week, we are the viceroy that is on a mission to free the lost princess. The lost princess is those holy sparks that are encased within every single thing. Okay? Now, to finish the story with the Gloomy Tailor, since he's gloomy. He's gloomy. The Baal Shem Tov is into what? Simcha. So he took him in, and he basically worked on him to rehabilitate him, so to speak, to be a more happy individual. And the big rule comes out of it, and also along with this week's Parsha as well. It's a very huge thing, and we speak about this all the time, the idea of simcha. The idea of joy is so big in Judaism. We say this, that the divine presence does not rest on someone who is sad. Think about that. Someone who is happy. So, the most amazing thing that happened in this week's Parsha, Vayeshev, before we get into how the Baal Shem Tov interprets it, was the element of Yosef getting sold into slavery. Wherever Yosef was, God was with Yosef. And do you know why? Because he maintained his demeanor of simcha, of joy. No matter what the situation, even though he was sold many times, Potiphar's house, jail for 10 years, 12 years, okay? So Hashem was always with him, because why? He was always in a state of joy. Yaakov Avinu, on the other hand, is high and a holy tzaddik. We can never reach his deeds. But because when he heard about Yosef right, being killed, so to speak, right, he was so sad. The divine presence was not with him until 22 years later when he found out Yosef was alive. The divine presence only rests on those who are happy. So, of course, the Baal Shem Tov was going to work on this gloomy tailor to bring him joy, okay? And he did, okay? Okay, so now we're going to start in this week's Parsha, and we're going to talk a little bit about Hanukkah, okay? So in this week's Parsha, if you have it there in your sheets, that what I sent you. We're not going to be able to go through every single piece, but in the time that we have, God willing, we'll do it, okay? Now, the biggest thing here and the biggest introduction and the greatest thing that we can always understand when we're delving into Hasidic thought and the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, why am I doing the Baal Shem Tov? Why do I do this? Because you know why? Because this was the one who made a soul ascent and saw the Mashiach, and he asked the Mashiach when he's coming. And you know what he said? The Mashiach told the Baal Shem Tov, right? He would come what? Once your teachings become publicly known and revealed throughout the world, okay? And when your well springs have overflowed beyond, imparting to others what I have taught you, and you have grasped, okay? So it's very important. Go to the root. Go to the holy teachings of the Master, because what? We all want the redemption of the world. We all want to see Mashiach. And so if we study his Torahs and the Torahs of his students also, okay? So then only we can bring the redemption. As a matter of fact, I had a big thought today just to also definitely, there's many Torahs on the redemption from the Holy Master, the Baal Shem Tov, and also many of the other Hasidic rabbis. And I wanted to start to piece those because I feel it coming. And I'll explain in a minute, okay? So here, we are on Parshas Vayeshev. So Vayeshev starts, and here we go. Oh, I got to give you another introduction, really small one. And I taught this before. You know, the way that the Baal Shem Tov, or the way that the Holy Masters understand the Torah, and the way we should also understand the Torah, is that the Torah is nitzchi. That's the Hebrew word. Nitzchi. What does nitzchi mean? Eternal. Okay? That means it has a relevance for us in the here and now, in the deepest part of our soul, in terms of our connection to the Ein Sof, our connection to God. Every single word in the Torah has an immediate relevance for us, even though it seemed like it might be some obscure mitzvah that you'll probably never do, or you know, like paraduma, like the red heifer, okay, you know, or something that's very far away from probably being practical. No, it has an absolute relevance in the here and now, and every single verse that the Baal Shem Tov goes into and explains and extrapolates from has to have that relevance, and he brings it here in an amazing way, okay? So we'll do really the first piece first, even though it's not the first piece, it's the second piece. Don't let's not get complicated. But here we go, step one. First of all, just to give you a little background into what the Parsha was about and what's happening, okay? Yaakov Avinu, after being brought up with Esav, his wicked brother. And then he had to leave, and he had to go out and be with his wicked uncle Lavan for 22 years, 20 years, 1 year traveling there and back. Anyways, and then he had to deal with meeting Esav again. And then Dinah gets captured. Finally, Yaakov Avinu wanted to settle. There's no settling. God said there's no settling for righteous in this world. Next world you settle, not this world. Okay? We're never done, okay? And so what happened was, okay, he wanted to settle, and because he wanted to settle, therefore came the whole incident of Yosef getting sold. And of course, the verse brings down that Yosef was a nar. These are the generations of Yaakov. Yosef was 17 years old and shepherded the flock with his brothers. And Yosef brought the brothers' evil report to their father, okay? So we can look in the Midrashim about those evil reports that he brought to his father, and they were actually evil reports. All of the commentaries give very practical reasons and very deep in terms of what was going on between Yosef and his brothers. But here we're going to have to take it another level. We have to peel off the mask of matter and enter into a different realm of understanding the verse in the Torah, okay? because once again, it has a relevance for us in the here and now. So here we're going to start. And Yosef brought the brothers' evil report to their father. We can understand that very simply. But of course, we're going to go a completely different meaning. So he says, that is, whatever the world does without an awareness of God is an aspect of evil. That's an incredible line when you think about it. And it's so deep. Whatever the world does without an awareness of God is an aspect of evil. It's not totally evil. But if it's missing God, it's missing the point. Okay? That's what Judaism teaches. Okay? Everything has to have an element of God in it. Everything has to have a goal of elevating humanity in it. We are very goal-driven people. Okay? You'll notice the days of Hanukkah, all the culture that they brought, nothing in Judaism about that whatsoever. Okay? Except that it's detracting from our goal. And our goal is it must have an awareness. Okay. And he brings a verse. For the soul without knowledge of God is not good. So he brings a verse from Proverbs there, chapter 19, that for the soul without knowledge, blidat is loto, is not good. Okay. In other words, everything has to have an aspect of knowledge of God because that makes the ultimate connection, as we're going to discover. But Joseph would bring their evil report to their father. What does that mean? That is, he would bind them to their root. Okay, so here we have to go into the note. The note explains it really nicely. Here we go, introduction. A huge topic that is brought down and not necessarily understood in Hasidic thought. It's the concept called the tzaddik. Okay, it's a lot of it in Rabbi Nachman, right? To cling, to attach to the tzaddik. Also, the Barditchever Rebbe, not the Barditchever Rebbe, and also many other the Hasidic rabbis get into this attachment to the tzaddik. And I believe it is not clearly understood, and sometimes it's misinterpreted. Okay, but here we're going to sort of look at it. The tzaddik, represented by Joseph, would uplift to his Father in heaven all the deeds performed in the world without a consciousness of God. Again, so the tzaddik. Now, you can talk a lot about who is the tzaddik. And we do call him Yosef HaTzadik. And we do call him Yosef HaTzadik because why? He was with Potiphar's wife, who was trying to seduce him, and he resisted, even though he almost fell in the end. He resisted, and therefore his commitment was totally upheld. Okay, which is the idea of the tzaddik is always looked upon in Yosef, who is the archetype of this righteousness. You see, there's two types of people in the world, if we could describe it like that. There's the tzaddik, the person who never tasted sin. And then there's the person who tasted sin and is on their way back. Interesting, right? Like Rabbi Wolbe says, there's growing and, not growing kinds of Jews, right? So he has a different kind of wording. In any case, the idea here of the tzaddik is represented by Joseph. If you'll notice in the array of the sfirot, he represents the 9th sfirot. If you go from Keter, Chachma, Bina, Tiferes, Gevura, Chachma, Bina, Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. He's called Yesod. Just before the last sphera, which is called Malchut, he represents Yesod. Yesod literally means in English, foundation. Foundation. Now, it's a very interesting how I can tell you all the meaning of all of the sfirot, and they have some kind of way for us to grasp it because of its emotional value. A crown is a little bit hard. That's the not top. It's beyond. Wisdom, we can, okay. It's a meaning. It has a word. There's a concept. Understanding, that's Bina. We have chesed, kindness, got that. Gevura, discipline, got that. Tiferet, beauty, or something called harmony. You have netzach, which is like dominance. It's an attitude, it's a behavior. All of these sfirot are what we call hanhagot, or ways how God guides in this world. And then we have hod, which is called splendor, or as Rabbi Kaplan calls it, empathy. And then you'll have the ninth sphera called yesod, which means foundation. And now what is that? I've always had a problem with it. Malchut also. Malchut represents, by the way, that other type of Jew that is returning. He's King David. He's the one who sins and comes back. But foundation, or yesod, or Yosef, he's the one, that tzaddik, who's never tasted sin. Okay? And the reason my definition is in my classes that I give for Yesod, I give it a different name. Because I understand Yesod, or foundation, in a building. I'm going to make a building. I need a foundation. Great. How do I understand it in the array of the holy illuminations, the 10 sfirot? So I don't know how I came to this, and I could be wrong, but for right now, we're going to use it. I call it, that nasty 4-letter word, commitment. That's right. No one wants to commit these days, right? Very hard to find somebody to fully commit. I remember when I was in Lakewood Yeshiva in Jerusalem, and I would listen. Somebody recorded for me a whole 24-day Tony Robbins, seminar thing, and I was listening to that. That was my musar, right? And I'm taking notes. And I think his very first lesson was decide to commit. Okay? Which is a huge thing. And when you understand that in a relationship, it makes total sense. Okay? Because it represents commitment. Total commitment. Okay? That's what the foundation of a relationship. Would you say that not? Or maybe other things. You can have other foundations, but that's number one. Are you committed? Okay? So here's Joseph, and of course he was tempted by Potiphar, and he resisted the temptation. He is called the tzaddik. Now, we have to go into another way how I understand this, because don't forget, I've been hit with all kinds of text. You got to attach yourself to the tzaddik, and you attach yourself to the tzaddik, and there's lots of interpretations for it that we'll get into. But one of the understandings that I have is within us, there is a tzaddik. In other words, there's a value within us that is so holy. Actually, there's parts of our soul that never tasted sin. Would you believe that? You have to believe it. You have to know that it exists. Okay? There is an element within our souls that has never tasted sin. It is beyond sin. Okay? It might be hard for you to grasp, but you got to start to come to terms with it and to grapple with it. Okay? There is an element within us that is called a tzaddik. Okay? So in any case, let's go into the verse and see how the Baal Shem Tov understands it. Once again, we got to take a step back. And Joseph brought the brothers evil report to their father. Okay? So Joseph, who's the tzaddik, would uplift to his father. So now you were thinking, if you would read the verse, Joseph brought the evil report of his brothers to his father. You think Yaakov, it's not. It's now we're looking at it. We're stripping everything away. And we're going to look at it as a formula, like E equals MC squared. Okay? Joseph is a tzaddik, the righteous element within us that brings evil report. What do we call evil? He just got through telling us what an evil report is. Evil is what? Anything that is without the consciousness of God with it. Anything anything in the world that you engage in and you didn't have God involved. Okay? In your whole past. But the element within us, which is this tzaddik, he elevates it. He brings the evil report, those things that are devoid of God, he brings them to their father. He would bind them to their root. Okay? Hence, also, every single thing that we were talking about and what the Jews have to be engaged in is bringing everything to its root. It brings it down in Likutei Maharan, Torah Aleph, right there, that there's a whole difference between Jacob and Esau, Yaakov and Esau. Jacob looked at the seichel and everything. He tried to look at God and everything. And Esau was, okay, I got my case of beer, my truck, my girlfriend, and I got the channel changer working. 800 stations, okay? So therefore, now we have just a different way to understand that verse, that you were looking at it all along, about Joseph bringing a bad report to his father, a bad report of his brothers to his father, which means no. We're here even in things where we were in the past, or even things where we partake of. We're always involved in trying to elevate things. We always look to the God in everything, all the time, okay? Now, let's go to the next one, okay? These are the generations of Yaakov. Joseph was 17 years old and shepherded the flock with his brothers. Strange terminology there, okay? Let me just give you the, look in the Hebrew here. That the Hebrew says, as I get to it, okay, no, wrong page. Before the dreams, right? Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz Mugurei Aviv be'eretz Canaan, right? Ela Toldos Yaakov, right? Yosef ben Sheva Esrei Shana Haya Ro'es Echav Batson. It's a strange language. Yosef would shepherd Ro'eh Es Echav, his brothers, Batson, with tzon. If I would look at it, or in tzon, or in flock. He would shepherd his brothers in flock. If I were to translate that literally, as I translate it, you're seeing it doesn't really make sense, does it? He would shepherd his brothers with flock, okay? And that's where the commentaries kind of Jimmy shank it. Of course, Rashi explains simply that he was befriending the sons of the Shifchot, Zilpah and Bilhah. He was befriending them because the other brothers were calling them slaves, sons of slaves, okay? So that's how it's understood simply. The Baal Shem Tov, of course, is going to take it to another level. Here we go. The word shepherd, roeh, implies to unite or to link together. This is kind of bizarre, and we're going to have to come back to this. As in the words brotherliness and friendship, okay? In other words, if you look at the word roeh, which means shepherd, literally, but roeh, in terms of its letters, right, was Resh, Ayin, Hey, right? It means also, reut, which means brotherlyhood, friendship, connection, okay? As it brings down right here, okay? Let me just see it in the text here. Yeah, he brings down three words, miached, mechaber, mekasher. Join, connect, and bind, okay? From the language of achava, brotherliness, and friendship. Therefore, okay, so this is strange, because if you want to take that definition and put it back into the definition, we were always understanding shepherd, so we're going to get into it. A shepherd is called a roeh, a shepherd, all right, roeh, because he brings the flock together in one place, lest they become scattered. That's what shepherds do. Thus, Joseph united his brothers, that is, all of Israel, and the sparks of the divine presence. He uplifted and repaired all of them by means of the holy mystical unifications that he performed. In other words, we're going to see he did this with what we call, quote unquote, the flock, which implies unifications. In other words, a code word for the flock, as you'll see it every time in the Chumash now, because don't forget, we're trying to decode the Chumash. We're trying to decode the Bible, okay? The real decoding. The word tzon means flock, yes, but it also, as we're going to see in the note, it means also meditation. So now we got to go through and I don't think I have the total understanding of this, because every single thing that Yosef has been doing has been the exact opposite, if you look at it. right? Him tattletaling on his brothers, and then with the dreams, it only created the situation worse. It seems like what is the Baal Shem Tov going on when it seems to be it's joining, right? And if you have an answer, send it to me, okay? But let's just go back here in the notes, okay? Because there's a very big concept here called the mystical unification, okay? So the concept here, I'm going on the note here, okay? The note on 103 and page 83. The concept of mystical unifications is called in Hebrew yichudim. Yichud is a very strange word. Yichud means it's a binding, yachad, like if something is together, to make something together. And yichud is also like yechidah, which is like almost like an individual expression. Okay? And these are just simple meditation. Let's see what he says. The concept of mystical unification, yichudim, is one of the central teachings of the Baal Shem Tov. That's why we had to do this. And operates on many levels. In other words, if you can't do the high level yichud, you do a yichud. And a yichud just means what? Connection. What we're talking about so far, everything we've been talking about so far is connection. In other words, we're always working to connect it to God. Always. Because God is really all there is. Okay? And sometimes we get caught up in other stuff. That's called the klipa, or the shells, or the husks. And we always have to draw, using our consciousness and mindfulness, to draw ourselves back. So he says, the concept of mystical unification, yichudim, is one of the central teachings of the Baal Shem Tov and operates on many levels. The basic level is the recognition of the presence of the Creator in all aspects of creation, okay? Hey, I saw God in biology class. I was looking at the human anatomy, and me and my friend Eric Eisenberg were just going, oh my gosh, who made this? The wisdom is amazing. And really, if a person has focus, they could do that and see the God in every single thing in creation, okay? In a rock, that's right, okay? Be they physical, emotional, conceptual, and even spiritual. There's the presence of the Creator is in everything. Thus, the Baal Shem Tov said, whatever you see, remember God. And here he brings it down to a practical application right now. If you feel love, remember the love of God. If you experience fear, recall the fear of God. Even when you go to the bathroom, that's right. Think to yourself, I am removing the bad from the good, so that the good will remain in the service of God. I don't know if you should think of God's name in a bathroom. I was told not to, okay? I don't know where the note gets it from, and I would just, so far respectfully disagree until I have a dialogue with him. But definitely the Vilna Gaon also says that when you are in the bathroom and you are removing your waste, you have to contemplate in yourself. You're going to love this, folks, okay? You're going to contemplate, I am now shedding all of the negativity, the bad midot, the bad character traits from me. Vilna Gaon says that, right? Baal Shem Tov says it a different way, okay? I am removing the bad from the good. It's amazing when you think about it. And I told you this before. The essential work of elevating the sparks is called birur, separation. In other words, you're separating. You're taking the good from the bad. In all of those 288 sparks that are all over creation and everything, when we use it for good, we are extracting the sparks that are within it. We're taking the good from that. We're separating. Our bodies naturally separate. It takes the good and it gets rid of the bad. Okay? So the idea here is in the bathroom, you're also involved in the service of God because you're now shedding. As a matter of fact, they bring that down as one of the pleasures of the next world. Did you know that? Did you know that? That's right. One of the pleasures of the next world is going to the bathroom because you know why? You're releasing negativity. Okay? That's one of the ideas. There's a constant shedding there's a constant growing. So with growing, you encounter another layer to shed another idea of an old concept that you thought God was, and tomorrow you're going to be on another level where you're going, oh my gosh, what I thought God was yesterday was poo-poo. Okay, so that's what that kind of represents by in the next world relieving oneself in the restroom, right, is one of the pleasures of the next world. So this is the meaning of unification, going on in the note here. This is the meaning of unification. On a deeper level, it means the mystical combination of the letters of creation. This is a higher level, especially in prayer and Torah study, that can produce a revelation of the divine oneness in the world. Okay, this is, like I said, a higher level, and it's good to know that these levels exist, where they would go ahead and understand and look at this thing in creation and look at the letters. They'd know the letters of Kisei, and they were able to go ahead and flip it using the words and the letters because they understand the elements of creation, and they were go ahead and able to manipulate things with that and create something higher with it. In the verse above, the Baal Shem Tov is saying that Yosef, who represents the tzaddik, is able to see the divinity in each Jew, and through this uplift all Israel to their Father in heaven. Alternatively, Joseph could see the Hebrew letters that constitute all of reality and combine them in patterns that would reveal the divine presence in creation. In other words, he would be able to flip the letters around in a situation. Somebody would come to him and go, and tell their tale of woe. He would take the letters of their tale of woe and rearrange the letters and patterns and going, look at this. And they would go, oh my gosh. And they would be healed. Okay. And they would be instantly connected. Okay. That was the power of Joseph. Okay. A tremendous power. Now, this other note has to do with the letters of tzon, of flock, which we said it was a combination of three letters, Tzadi, Aleph, and Nun. We said this word, which literally means flock, okay, is really the code word for meditation. It's amazing. So when it says in the verse that Joseph was 17 years old and he shepherded the flock with his brothers, no, it means he joined creation with meditation. Okay. And the meditation here specifically, it's a specific meditation. I'll have to get you the details, but he brings it here in the footnote. The three letters of the Hebrew word flock is tzon, can be divided into Tzadi and Aleph. Okay, he put an O there, Tzadi Aleph, whose numerical value is 91. It's a very significant number, 91. And of course, the third letter of this word, tzon, flock, is Nun. The number 91 is also the numerical value, the gematria, of two of God's holy names. Together, one is Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, that's 26, and the other one is Adonut, which is 65. So if you take 65 plus 26, you end up with 91. So these two letters, this letter combination is an amazing way to go ahead and uplift creation, okay? We do it all the time. As a matter of fact, there are some prayer books which automatically have it every time you're saying a blessing, every time you're saying a song in the Psalms, every time Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is mentioned. Then we have, what happens is, we also have in between each letter, we weave these two names together. In other words, the first letter of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is Yud. The first letter of Aleph Dalet is Aleph. The second letter is Hey of the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. And the second letter of Aleph Dalet, it is Dalet. And then you do a Vav and Nun, and then Hey and Yud. Matter of fact, that is the meditation. And in that meditation, we unite this world with the next world. Just as even contemplate the letters. It's a fantastic meditation. Really, like I said, it's in the prayer books. Every single time it should be utilized because that is the ultimate way to extract the holy sparks that are in creation and to elevate them. So when we look back here, now you could look at that last week's Parsha, right? In Vayeshev, completely different in terms of what is really happening in that very first verse. That here's Joseph, right? He's always involved in uniting things, and he uses the names of Hashem to do it with this meditation. very practical for even all of us. And then the other one was when he brings a bad report to his father, that means everybody's mundane activity, he also wants to work to elevate. And how does he elevate it? When he experiences it, when he hears about it, when he sees it, he wants to make sure to try to hook it up to its root, seeing, and he just starts with asking the question, by the way, where is God in this? Okay. Now I have to go to the most important piece that's going to tie it up for Hanukkah. Okay. I asked in the email that I sent out that it's usually every single time Hanukkah comes, it's usually always the Parsha of Miketz. That's next week's Parsha. Very rarely it falls on this week's Parsha, Parsha's Vayeshev. Miketz always is Ketz Sam Choshech, which means God brings an end to the darkness. There's a midrash which says that, and it has to do with Miketz, the word Miketz, which means the end. That happens to do with almost the end of the exile. You like the menorah in the parsha of Miketz because it symbolizes the redemption and bringing the little candle and bringing the light to darkness. But here we're in Vayeshev, which is the beginning of exile. Okay, which is like I'm kind of like pretty apprehensive inside of me, considering how I see what's happening in the world. Okay, and I want to see everything turn out good, and something, Baruch Hashem, it will turn out good. Okay. So now go to the next page that I have. It's actually on page, it doesn't have a number with it. It's on page 88. It should be, where it's all of the dark bold here on this page. Okay. So it says here, we're going fast forwarding. Yosef was already sold, and he's in the house of Potiphar, of course. What happens is Potiphar's wife sees in the stars that she's destined to have a child from Joseph. She doesn't know it's really Osnas, right? But she sees in the stars that she's destined to have a child from Joseph. And so she tries to seduce him, right? But of course, Joseph resists. But of course, what happened? And it came to pass, as she spoke to Joseph day by day, that he did not listen to her, to lie with her, right? Or to be with her. Strange why it's double language. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his work, and there was none of the men in the house within. And she caught him by his garment and said, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand, fled, and went outside. And so here's where people say Joseph went back specifically to go and sin with her. Some people say, no, Joseph went back just because he had to do some work, but it happens to be there alone. And push comes to shove, whether he was about to commit the act, she caught the garment and he ran outside. And that's when she cried. She called the authorities, she called police, had him arrested, had him thrown in jail. Okay? So now what are we going to learn? We're going to learn how the Baal Shem Tov interprets this. This is an incredible idea. It's an incredible concept. And this is what's so important for Hanukkah for us. Okay? The sages have explained that when Potiphar's wife tried to seduce Joseph, he saw an image of his father, Jacob. Actually, it says he saw an image of his father in the window. Okay? So he saw an image of his father, Jacob. So because of that, when he saw that, he ran. In other words, even according to the view that says he went back to go and commit the act, he was about to, but he saw out the window, he saw an image of his father, and he took off. So it is known that Potiphar's wife would make herself look extremely beautiful to Joseph. The clothing she wore in the morning, which she would not wear in the afternoon, and that what she wore in the afternoon, she would change in the evening, all in order to seduce him. Here's a 17-year-old with raging hormones, and the woman's just trying to seduce you. Boy, what a test. Joseph did not want this beauty, however. By means of this beauty, he desired and was burned for the spiritual beauty, which was represented by the image of his father, which is called Tiferet Yisrael. Okay? So here, look at the note. a phrase meaning the beauty, Tiferet Israel, or glory of Israel, of the Jewish people. Here, the Baal Shem Tov applies it to Jacob, Israel. According to Kabbalah, Jacob corresponds to the Sphira of Tiferet, which means beauty or resplendence. Joseph was not satisfied by physical beauty, for he saw it as only a lower manifestation. Don't forget, the way we always look at the Torah, right, is it's a projection. There is the projector, there's the film, and then there's the screen, and the world is the screen. And so every single thing you see in the screen has a spiritual counterpart on the film, right, that's being projected from the light, okay? And so he sees something physical in this world. He says, got to be something more beautiful in the next world. For he saw it only as a lower manifestation of spiritual beauty. This principle can be applied to all things of the world. This is how the Hasidic masters live. This is how the sages live. Every single thing that they're experiencing, they want to connect it to Torah. What does the Torah say about this? What does the Torah say about that? Or really, where is the spiritual root of it? Okay? Something in the 10 statements of creation is giving this thing its animation. Okay? And if it's beauty in the physical world, it must be something more spiritual, beautiful, right? More in the spiritual world. Although the wife of Potiphar tried to seduce him with physical beauty, he saw in it a reflection of Tiferet, the spiritual source of beauty represented by his father, Yaakov. So here is where we get into this idea of Hanukkah, okay? That we see is an interesting idea that we talk about. In Hanukkah, actually, Chazal, our rabbis of blessed memory, have said that there's only really in the future, when Mashiach comes and the final redemption may be speedily today, there will only be 2 holidays that will be in the world. 2 holidays. No Pesach, not Shavuos, not Sukkot. Hanukkah and Purim. Hanukkah and Purim will remain in the end of days. And so I heard an answer that is so amazing, and it ties in with this so perfectly. It's so beautiful. And the answer is because those 2 holidays come from the next world, okay? They are coming from the future. It's like unbelievable, right? It's almost like science fiction. They are coming from the future into the now, okay? You know, most holidays, it's a commemoration of this. We went out of Egypt, we eat matzah, right? We lived in booths, we sit in the sukkah, right? And even though we light a candle, but the candle is nothing, okay? It's something, but it's only supposed to represent something. Otherwise, we would light a 7-branch menorah. So the idea here is those holidays are coming, they're projecting from the future into our realm. That's why in the future, there will only be Hanukkah and Purim. Now, the idea about Hanukkah is this, and that's what is so amazing. As we know, throughout all of the nights of Hanukkah, if you add up all the total amount of candles that we light is going to be, how much? 36. Those 36 lights that we light, the culmination of all of them, represent the 36 hours that what we call the Or Haganuz, the hidden light, was in the world. That's right. In the very beginning of creation, when God said, let there be light, that was not the light that we experienced from anything else. That's called the Or Haganuz, or the hidden light. Shem took that light after he saw that the wicked were going to use this light. He tucked it away. He put it away. He hid it for the righteous, la'atid lavo, for the future. So the lights of the menorah really are a representation, expression, or bringing back an opening of a window of that hidden light. Everybody says this. No matter where I turn, they all talk about the hidden light. That's why the rabbis would sit in front of the candles and meditate on the candles, because also according to the Kavah Yashar, I explained this last year, there's prophecy coming through the candles. Prophecy. Prophecy coming through a candle. Candle of the mitzvah, also your Shabbos candles and also your Yom Tov candles. If you would stare and gaze at the candle, the Rebbe's would stare for hours at a time, because there would be some kind of window open. That's the window I'm talking about. The window I'm talking about is when Yaakov was with, Joseph, about to do the sin with Potiphar's wife. He saw the window and he saw Yaakov Avinu. What did he see? He saw his potential. He saw what he could be. He saw Yaakov Avinu, and basically it's almost as if Yaakov was saying, you are way higher than this. You are way better than this. You can operate upon your lower self, or you can operate from your higher self. He saw the higher self. He saw the higher potential. That was what he saw. That is why Hanukkah this year falls on this week on Vayeshev, to remind us, to bring us the idea, the concept of the window, our window. When we look at the Hanukkah candles, if you can just, even while you're eating the jelly donut or the latke, right, you can still look at those Hanukkah candles and try to get an image of the highest person that you could be, even if it's just for a minute, definitely for longer. You're supposed to peek into the window of going, gosh, how can I could live my life. What's the ideal state I could be in? The ideal type of person I could be, right? And get a glimpse of it. That's the window. That's Joseph looking through the window. That's Joseph saying, okay, this is beautiful. There's a higher beauty. This is great. There's a higher one. And to go for the higher, to reach for the potential. We even learned about this a while ago. When you grasp the potential, everything else falls away. Okay, so that's the idea of Hanukkah. We should all meditate on the candles, okay? The flame, right? The candles are so small. I heard an interesting word. Why can't we use a torch? Why do we use a candle? Because a candle is so small. And it's to try to re-inculcate within us, there is no nature. We're trying to make everything equal. God is all there is. God is all there is. Okay, I'm going to end now because somebody else is coming up on the class, but I'm staying on Zoom with y'all, okay? And for anybody have any questions or comments.